machine that can be used as a pot to cook in, brush your teeth, clean your socks, and make sure you do your socks last.
Yeah. I'm not touching.
What, is Santa Claus somewhere in the yard? Yeah, good thing.
Yeah. It's always my guy.
Always.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no parking out there whatsoever. I had to go around the block up and down to our park over here. So maybe it's center of a place to park. You know, Pat, there's still parking out there. Maybe she's trying to find a place to park. I mean, I literally have to, I have to go around the block. That's not, you know, it's a tree ball. That's why they pay you big money. Got a store. Pat, if you want to start, I can escort you. Yeah. Want to do that? Gary. Gary does it. Gary, okay.
Well, I know everybody has things to do, and generally I like to start things pretty punctually. Well, good morning. My name is Patrick Wemmett. I'm the chairman or chairperson of the Columbia County Honor of Veteran Committee. On behalf of Congressman Mark Marinaro, Senator Michelle Henchy, the Columbia County Board of Supervisors, and the Columbia County Honor of Veteran Committee, I would like to welcome everyone here this morning and thank you for your attendance. Before we begin, please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices so we do not interrupt the ceremony. I'll give you a moment to do that. Thank you. Will everyone please stand and remain standing? Will the Saxons Falls VFW Post 9593 please post the colors?
Color guard, attention. Half step, march.
Will everyone remain standing and join committee member John Neary give the invocation, please?
O God, by whose mercy the faithful departed find rest, look kindly on our departed veterans. Grant that through the passion, death, and resurrection of your Son, they may share in the joy of your heavenly kingdom and rejoice with you and your saints forever. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Everyone remain standing and join committee member Gary Flaherty in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our great nation.
Color guard, present arms.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms.
Would everyone be seated?
Color guard, be seated.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize the committee members that put the program together each month, along with those who are no longer with us. members that are past and past chairs: Gary Clarity, Mark Clark, John Neary, Holly Tanner, Robert Laporta, Jeff French, Eric DeCry, Patrick Mayo, Joe Davis, Joanne Conker, Dave Sleater. Honorary members or past chairs: Jim Haggerty, Vince Grimaldi, and Arnie Anderson. Please take a moment to look at the plaques of our deceased and honorary members, Medal of Honor recipients, and previously honored veterans located in the hallway to the left of the double doors. Excuse me. I would like to thank all the veteran organizations who are here in attendance today. This morning we are honoring Michael J. Fox from Chatham. At this time, I'd like to introduce Amy Cox, who will introduce family members and friends in attendance today. Amy?
Good morning, and thank you all for coming. I'd just like to introduce my family. My Aunt Mary Eileen Cox, Michael's widow, his son Michael Cox, his daughter Bridget Cox, his nephew Frank Cox, his nephew John Cox, his nephew Jeffrey Cox, his niece Maureen Paul, okay, his sister-in-law Alberta Cox, his sister-in-law Agnes Cox, his sister-in-law Lori Carmi, his brother-in-law Ed Carmi, and his great niece Shannon Van Tassel. I'm flummoxed on the names, and we're all here to honor him and stand in place for some of our deceased relatives, his brother Frank, his sister Nancy, and his brother Ross, and his sister Sharon, who couldn't be here today.
We'd also like to, via Skype, we have the pleasure of welcoming the second grade class from the Hudson City School District and their teacher, Ms. Murata. At this time, I'd like to introduce Emma Cohen, representing Congressman Pat Ryan, who will present to the family the American flag that flew over the Capitol in Washington, D.C.
Not Ryan.
Pardon me.
Wrong Congress.
Pardon me?
Wrong Congress.
Oh, yes. My apologies.
Well, good morning, everybody. We'll change your plans here. My name is Alex Ward, representing Congressman Mark Molinaro. It's a pleasure to be with you all here this morning to honor a great veteran here in Columbia County. I have a proclamation which I'd like to read, and this is on behalf of Congressman Mark Molinaro and his entire family. On behalf of the Congress of the United States, it is my privilege to dedicate this flag to the memory of Michael Joseph Cox. This flag was flown over the United States Capitol in recognition of his distinguished service to our country in Vietnam and Cambodia.
Again, my apologies. I would now like to introduce Emma Cohen, representing Senator Michelle Hinchey, who will present the New York State Liberty Medal to the family.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emma Cohen, and I am here representing Senator Hinchey, who does send her regrets that she could not be here, but it gives me the distinct honor of being here and celebrating with all of you. So as mentioned, the Liberty Medal is the State Senate's highest award. It is dedicated for citizens who have merited special commendation for their action on behalf of their fellow New Yorkers and their community. I find that especially fitting for today's honoree, Michael Cox, for his service in Vietnam, and he returned home to continue a life of service for his community throughout Columbia County. It was really special. I got to take a few moments to speak with you, Mary Eileen, and not only has your husband had a great life of service, but you have as well. And I can see that with all of the family members and community members that are gathered here, that's made an incredible impact on your family and your community. So thank you for your service as well. And it's wonderful to start off this week leading up to Memorial Day, honoring a wonderful veteran in our community. So thank you for this honor, and without further ado, I'll give you the liberty. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll wait till everyone.
Thank you, Evan. On behalf of the Columbia County Board of Supervisors, I would like to introduce Janelle Collins, who will present the certificate of recognition.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to present the certificate of recognition awarded to Michael J. Cox. Sorry about that. Born 11th of December 1946 and moved on May 28th of 2022. Michael Joseph Cox was born December 11th, 1946 to George and Helen Rassin Cox in Troy, New York. He attended Niagara Elementary School and graduated from Ichabod Crane High School in 1964. He attended for 2 years the Albany Business College, majoring in accounting prior to military service. Mike entered the United States Army on August 14, 1967. After attending basic training, he was assigned to headquarters and headquarters company 2nd Battalion, 47th Infantry, Mechanized 3rd Brigade, 9th Infantry Division in Binh Phuoc, Vietnam. Specialist 5 Michael Cox's unit was mechanized and was engaged in combat in South Vietnam as well as Cambodia. After having served his tour of duty, Specialist 5 Cox returned to the States on the 7th day of August 1970. For his service, he was awarded the following: the Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, and the National Defense Service Medal. Mike returned to Columbia County and married Mary Eileen Carney at Castleton, New York. Together they raised 2 children, Michael Garner and Bridget Eileen. Mike was employed by Amtrak and United States Postal Service. Mike was a member of the VFW, St. James Catholic Church in Chatham, local community theater at the Gent Playhouse, and was supportive of the arts. Living in Chatham, Mike passed away May 28, 2022 at the age of 76. His remains were cremated and confirmed to his immediate family. He left behind his lovely wife, Mary Eileen, and their 2 children, and looks like a lot of very caring family members. John Costello, who served with Michael in Vietnam, fondly recalled, "We always had each other's back while in the Delta. You were a warrior then, and you were a warrior to the end. You are a part of my heart and soul, and I love you until we meet again." This certificate was given in appreciation thereof under the hand of Matt B. Morrell, the Privy Seal of Columbia County Board of Supervisors at the County Office Building in Hudson, New York, this 22nd day of May in the year of our Lord, 2023. The certificate of recognition.
Thank you, Janelle. And we also have a presentation by PFC Dwyer recognition by the Widows Organization group.
Come on, ladies. Means you have to get up. Well, Mary, as one of our members, and we're very honored. And this is very special for us today to give you this because you're one of us and we're our people. And you mean a lot to us. And we want to thank you. And this is a little something that our good old lady over there, Carolyn, makes. And the card, and this is for you to have from us. Right here. Very special. All right, and we thank you. And we hope to see you next week. Make you feel better. Yeah. Look like cars. Okay. But thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Listen, I know you all. You like family, Mary. Just remember that. Your family.
Thank you.
Whether you like it or not. Right?
Thank you very much, Pastor. The rest of the week. Appreciate that. At this time, we usually have some anecdotal comments.
Yeah.
And, anyone that would like to say a few words on behalf of Michael? would be appreciated at this time.
Right. That was so constantly so quiet.
First time.
This is not the time to be shy, just, you got something to, an anecdote you'd like to share, growing up, or either way?
I should have thought about this beforehand. You were going to say it because about you. Let's see. Well, they went to Denmark together. Anything they found over there?
A lot of family history, good food. Always good time.
He told us he was probably the first unit into Cambodia before Nixon announced it when they went. And he said the country didn't know that. We were the first people there.
I suppose the country did know a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true.
And, Johnny Mark is our historian, and I'm sure he can regale you with a lot of historical facts and figures.
I'm just hoping that you don't test me on the names of all the Coxes that are in here.
This is
I was
only a
waiting for
representation.
Peacock over in the corner, you know. It must be on the family crest or something like that. It reminded me when I was growing up, I come from a large Irish Catholic family. And when we used to go to church, we just file out all 11 of us, you know. Anyway. Michael was a part of the mechanized fighting unit, and it consisted of what they call the M113 Armored Personnel Carrier. It was known as the APC, Armored Personnel Carrier. I know that I used to drive them. It was second only to the UH-1 Huey helicopter that your father was a gunner on during the Vietnam War. When it comes into importance or identification in Vietnam. The question is, everybody goes, wow, APC, Armored Personnel Carrier, I can't stop the bullet. Small arms it can, not one of those. That's a 50 caliber. That would have been on top of a turret that moved along. It would probably stop the bullet. It would go through one side, rattle around a little bit, and then it wouldn't go through the other side. It didn't give you a lot of protection because it was made out of aluminum. They made it out of aluminum because it was quick. It had a lot of speed. It had a crew of 2. It had 11 troops. The back came down. Now, an APC, if it was in here, would fit in this area here. It would be about the length of those 6 desks there, and it would be out about 2/3 of the way. It weighed about 2,400 pounds, which is about 12 tons. It was 15 feet long, almost 16 feet long. It was 8 feet high. It could hit a speed of 40 miles an hour in the open on a road, and about 4 miles an hour in the water if it didn't sink. I had to float one time, and it was in the winter time, and it started to leak. One of the seals didn't hit. So those things happen. And once again, they have a 50 caliber on top for protection. So what would happen is they would go into battle, they would get on line, and then they'd open up the back, and all the soldiers would get on line. The driver or the whoever was the commander of the APC would get up in the turret with a 50 caliber, give them supporting, and of course they would go online and they would do what they had to do. Between August of 1969 is when Mike was there, and April of 1970, his unit was engaged in hostile activity in Binh Phuc, and then again on May 70, June 70 in Cambodia. Now I'm going to tell you about Cambodia. They have what was happening is that troops from the north were making their way down to the south, and they used the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Well, that's a misnomer. Ho Chi Minh Trail isn't a trail. It's a series, dozens and dozens and dozens of trails that filter through. Now, when they set up the agreement that the north would be north and the south would be south, the north said that they wouldn't go into Laos or Cambodia. They did, and they took an unbelievable amount of supplies just across the border. And they would cross that border and they would go into the Ai Drang Valley or the A Shau, or what they would do, they would funnel into the communities like they did in Tet 68. They filtered through there. So When Richard Nixon became president of the United States, he said, we gotta fix a few things around here. Number one is they've got all these men and ammunition, whatever, in Cambodia. And for one interesting moment in history, the news of going into Cambodia did not leak out of Washington, D.C. And they went in, my brother was with a long-range reconnaissance alert team with the 1st Assignment Camp went in. And as he said, he was interviewed by the CBS News that his team, when they came out, they said, should we have gone to Cambodia? He said, absolutely we should have gone. And you're not going to believe the supplies and all, whatever like that. And then he said, oh, well, I'll probably be on the news. He wrote back, that must have fallen on the floor. You know what I'm saying? There was much fiction about Vietnam that should be dispelled. An example is the 1994 film Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump was a member of the 9th Infantry Division in Vietnam. Notably, the 4th Platoon, Company A, 2nd Battalion, 47th Infantry, which had been the outfit that your husband was involved in. And the movie Platoon is rich with stereotypes and just blatant fiction. Anybody that has ever been in the service, been in combat would know that. The only thing they do have one great scene when the APCs are coming through towards the end of the movie. Oh, and they got the equipment right, you know what I'm saying? They had the helmets and they had, but all that other stuff is all just all junk. And I'll give you an example how Hollywood tries to, it's just fiction. Ask any veteran how many pins that they pulled on a hand grenade using their teeth. And then stand back and watch their expression. It's like, what? What are you, out of your mind? Mike would have learned acronyms when he got in country was a term they used, like POW, MIA, NVA. He had to learn different vocabulary, like Charlie, boonies, DMZ, friendly fire. That's a lovely term. It's an oxymoron if anybody's into history or English. Grunt, Ho Chi Minh Trail, Hooch, in country, and of course, short timer, Freedom Bird, and the world. Short timer was how close you got to being de-roast out of country. And they had wonderful terms. I'm so short that I can sit on a dime and my feet will dangle, you know, type of thing. And they would just play back and forth about how short they were. A Freedom Bird obviously was the plane that would fly back, and of course the world was always considered the United States. War is not fought inside an APC, as I pointed out. They deploy, they have limited protection. It would probably stop M16 bullet, maybe some shrapnel, whatever, but it certainly wouldn't, anything, a mortar hitting it of that nature wouldn't. The other thing that's interesting how times change. Safe space is a term thrown around nowadays. Ask a Vietnam veteran where you could find a safe space in places like Khe Sanh or Hue City or the A Shaw Valley or the Ai Drang Valley. There was none to be found on January 30th, 1968, which was known as the Tet Offense, anywhere in the entire country. The only real safe space was on that Freedom Bird flying back to the world. Another thing, trigger warnings is the term they throw around. Unlike today's college culture, they have a different meaning to a Vietnam veteran. It came in words like trigger, this is a trigger term, incoming, how about medic or corpsman if you were in the Marine Corps. The distinct sound of a AK-47 had the same effect. And just to share with you something, a lot of Americans who were in Vietnam, long-range reconnaissance and such, they would dress in black pajamas. They would wear Ho Chi Minh sandals, which was made out just like the Viet Cong would have made, and they carried AKs. And the reason that they carried AKs because if they used American weaponry, they were behind enemy lines by dozens and dozens of miles. And you got in a firefight, they would know immediately that you were American, and probably you were a small team, and they would immediately, as they would say, march to the sound of battle. Vietnam veterans are generally private about their state in Vietnam. They each have their own image of that time. It might come when least expected, like on a hot, humid day when their shirt is soaked wet before 9 a.m. It might appear in the sound of rotor blades popping from a helicopter overhead. And I think I shared that with Pat. Whenever you hear a Huey, it has a very distinct popping sound. And you'll look up the smell of diesel fuel that they would have used in trucks, but they used them in ABCs. The smell of jet exhaust, when I go to an airport, because I was a paratrooper, I would fly the C-130s, and the smell of it when you were boarding, it was always very distinct to me. Each Vietnam veteran's experience may be different, yet they were collectively the same. They went to Vietnam as teenagers, but returned much, much older. War can do that to you. The reception that they received when they came home added additional years. When history of the Vietnam War is finally written, its legacy, it will not be of misplaced youth and a lost war, but of a wiser nation that in spite of it all, the Vietnam veteran came home, found a job, got married, raised a family, and became a solid fabric that built communities and became the foundation of this great nation. Michael Joseph Cox was such a man. Welcome home.
I used to talk about I listened to Vietnam stories. I was in the Army myself, paratrooper as well. So we did a lot of talking. I lived in Cambodia for 5 years. And I would travel. If you look on the table out there, you see Bangkok, President's Hotel. I went to look for all these places. Then I went to Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. Like, I got to go there. I went there on the 50th anniversary of when Uncle Michael was there. Of course, I asked him where he was stationed at, what part of town. He told me, described it. I'm like, yeah, I can't see none of it here. It's all built up into cities and houses and everything. But I did go to Ho Chi Minh, go through the tunnels and everything, just reflecting on kind of what my uncle went through. And of course, I came back. I had to tell him all the stories of the Bangkok trips and all the places that he went to. I kind of went there myself just to see with my own eyes. And I enjoyed talking to Uncle Mike about that. So that was one of my special things. And like I said, we went to Denmark together. A lot of good times with Uncle Mike. So.
One last thing, have you been to the wall?
No.
Go. It's an entirely different experience. If you stand back and watch them, the older gentlemen in there, you can tell that they had served over there. It's interesting to watch their reaction to it because it's almost like they go back to when they were 19, 20, 21 years old. It's a very moving time, but I should have.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Gary, do we have another trip scheduled for Washington?
The flight trip?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be in the fall. We don't have a date yet.
Okay. But you might want to inform people what
Yeah,
that's about.
Joanne and I get to work on it as soon as we know.
Okay. Thank you.
We're taking mainly Vietnam vets now.
Yeah.
And the change to that is it's a 2-day trip now instead of a down and back on Saturday.
Okay.
They go down on Saturday night, stay over, they pay for them, and then come back on Sunday.
Yeah.
I put announcements on the Columbia County website on different events that are coming up. So if you get a chance, you can look at that and see what's happening.
To a man and woman, and nobody's been, every one of them has been affected by that trip in a positive way. Well, this ends an inside segment of our ceremony. We'll now go outside where the flag will be raised and flown outside the county office building for 30 days in memory of Michael, after which time it will be cleaned and presented to the family. West Islands Falls, VFW Post 9593, please retire the colors.
Color guard.
Please stand.
Attention. Half step. March.
family members will please participate in the flag raising with the assistance of our current chairperson to raise the flag half staff, do a gun salute, taps will be played, closing prayer. This concludes this month's ceremony. Our next ceremony will be held
June the 12th.
June.
We'll be honoring Fred Crosby.
June 12th with Fred Crosby, the honoree. You're welcome to join us inside for coffee, donuts, and juice. If you're interested in honoring a veteran or know someone who needs to be recognized, let any one of our members know, please. Thank you for attending today's ceremony. Well attended, and thanks for your anecdotal comments. I appreciate it so much. Stick around for a picture. We'll get a picture of all together, please. Okay?